only 2 minutes. Shouldn't be that long. Shouldn't be that bad. Should be good if you guys are requesting. But yeah, let's get right into it. Indeed. No.
What if there was a song that was famous for making people cry? What if there was a song that perfectly captured the darkest corners of our deepest loneliness and depression? What kind of song would that be? And what kind of artist could possibly make it?
I used to wake up in my room in the morning, put on my dirty shoes in the morning. Heard mama crying last night, think of life.
12 Stout Street is a short and simple song by New York rapper RX Pappy and Swedish producer Good. While the two of them are fairly obscure artists, with RX Pappy having just a few 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, 12 Stout Street itself has over 18 million streams. Because throughout the last year, the song became the anthem for a bizarre and morbid TikTok trend called the Depressing slideshow era. Defined by images depicting suffering, trauma, depression, and mental illness, it got to the point where TikTok eventually removed the hundreds of thousands of videos using 12 Stout Street as a sound because they were just too dark. But 12 Stout Street lives on in infamy as one of the most heartbreaking songs ever made. It's both an extremely personal look into RX Pappy's mind and a picture of the human condition at the same time. It's a song that breaks down mountainous emotional walls in just 1 minute and 58 seconds. This is the story of 12 Stout Street. If you're interested in more of my creations, I just launched a series of pendants that I designed from scratch. Each necklace is made of full 925 sterling silver with enamel paint in the design of a sun rising over a night full of silver stars. To me, the necklaces serve as a reminder that whoever you are and whatever your goal is, whether it's business, content creation, school, music, the only way to reach your goals is to just keep going. Because there cannot be any light without dark. There cannot be any success without struggling first. If you want to support my work and buy a necklace, feel free to pick one up at the link below. Shipping is free in the United States and every necklace comes with a handwritten note. Shipping begins in late December. To buy a necklace, go to Volksgeist.store. 12 Stout Street is a real address. It belongs to a rundown old apartment in Rochester, New York, a city that's well known for high rates of crime and poverty. The life that RX Pappy has lived in Rochester is no exception to that statistic. During an interview with Spin.com, he talked extensively about how when he was 4 years old, his father was killed in a shootout outside 12 Stout Street. And years later, he saw his own brother die in front of his eyes. RX Pappy himself has been shot, stabbed in the face and stomach, and spent more than a year in jail multiple times. He was first booked into jail when he was just 13 years old. And that's where the pain in his music comes from, and the roughness through which he expresses himself too. In the words of Jason Buford, the author of the Spin.com article, his rhymes may be non sequiturs, but his references are encyclopedic, and his voice hit octaves most rappers can't touch, sometimes screaming like an uncontrollable manic episode bordering on exorcism. Sure, rap is performance art, but that understates what RX Pappy does. He's discharging his demons and virtues alike, because he would prefer to live in his crassness. And the act of naming a song after a real place really sets the tone for the story of 12 Stout Street and its raw and real themes. When you hear the name 12 Stout Street, it feels like you're listening in on someone else's world. And to me, it immediately draws me in, just off how unusual that is in itself. Even more so, 12 Stout Street is unfiltered and rough. I'm not talking about the instrumental or RX Pappy's rapping, even though those are raw too. I'm talking about the way that RX Pappy says exactly what he's thinking in a way that most people could never articulate, let alone while connecting his own thoughts and experiences to universal themes of fate, pain, and struggle. From the moment it starts, he drops us into the world of 12 Stout Street and paints it as a painful, hopeless place to live. He tells us that his home isn't really a home. He says, "I heard mama crying last night, think the lights are gonna go out." He expresses anger that he even has to live at 12 Stout Street at all, which quickly gets directed to his mom for the fact that she's the one who moved him there in the first place. And in a verse that I think a lot of people can relate to, he screams, "Mama said, baby, that was years ago. Don't stress about shit that happened years ago." Oftentimes, the most painful moments of our lives can be nothing but another regular day for people around us. And in this way, RX Pappy paints a picture of deep-rooted isolation from his mother, even though he says that he robs and steals to help her get by. And the next verse is even more heartbreaking as he describes the way his mother kicked him out of the house, leaving him feeling even more alone than before.
Fuck my mom, the one kicked me out. fuck you gonna send me out to the street? How the fuck you gonna say I can't come home and sleep? How the fuck I come out your
In the middle verses of the song, things somehow get even darker and more hopeless. It becomes clear that while RX Pappy has been referencing that he robbed and sold drugs to get what he got in life, to him it ended up causing even more trauma and pain than the poverty he had been in before. He says that ever since his father was murdered, his mother was supposed to be there for him, but she wasn't, and how that might be one of the causes of his current depression. And in one of the lowest moments of the whole song, he reveals that his entire life to this point has been full of regret.
How you gonna do that knowing they killed my dad? You supposed to be my mom and my dad. I wish that fucking house would burn down. I couldn't tell you then, but shit, I'll tell you now. For so many years I held it down. I never in my life wanted to sell drugs. I would've been cool with playing games and shit, but instead I'm running with the gang and shit. Robberies.
And that right there is the core of the story of the song. Through his rough and hoarse, screaming vocals, he wishes beyond anything that he didn't have to be the person he is. He doesn't want to be hard, he doesn't want to be dangerous, he wants to be safe and sound in a home where he can be himself, but he never could be, and it looks like that pain is eating him alive. The last three verses of the song expand on RX Pappy's experience with not having a home as a young person. He talks about how he tried to drown his depression with thousands of perks and it didn't do anything. He talks about how it would take years to explain his suffering, and the way he uses hyperbole shows us just how heartbroken he is, and it communicates that feeling of oppressive pain. It feels like nothing could ever make things better. The song ends with a callback to reality as he describes the way he used to dream of owning an Audi, but once he got it, he realized that the cost of his success was lifelong emotional scars. Even the money he always wanted doesn't make him feel safe through the pain he had been through.
Stood on the block with dreams of an Audi. Had a nightmare sleeping in my Audi. A nigga caught me lacking and pulled me out. Big ass pistol to my mouth, and it happened in front of 12 Stout Street.
I think the central theme of the song is that while 12 Stout Street may be a house, it was never his home. It was nothing but a reminder of his deepest trauma and pain, not having a father, struggling with his relationship to his mom, his feeling of being forced into a rough life against his will. He expresses his feelings in a way where it feels as if his entire world is on fire from the pain of being abandoned by the people who were supposed to keep him safe. He says, "I wish that fucking house would burn down. I couldn't tell you then, but I'll tell you now." Even on its own terms, 12 Stout Street is a tragic song. It's a raw confession from a perspective that we just almost never hear in music today. It's not a song with projection and posturing and false pretenses. RX Pappy isn't making himself sound bigger than he is, he's telling us just how small he really feels. And that feeling of smallness can only come from growing up in a scary world. As kids, we don't really know what's out there, we only know what we see. So if you only see things that are discouraging, disappointing, run down, or dangerous, if you don't have adults pushing you to try harder and chase your dreams, it can be really hard to find out what you're capable of. And I think that's a big part of why this song blew up and went viral the way it did. RX Pappy isn't alone. I think most people can relate to his words in one way or another. If you come from a bad school or a rundown city or a broken home, I think you'll understand the feeling of your life is out of control, like it was already decided from the start. And that's a big part of why this song was so successful on TikTok and why it was so heavily associated with videos about depression or anxiety, because one of the greatest causes of depression is a lack of control over your own life, and there's no better way to end up depressed than to feel hopeless. In music today, everything is so heavily linked to the idea of growth and being cool and showing off that even when an artist gets real and expresses some sort of pain, they usually pair it with the nonchalance of being numb. We always hear themes of, oh yeah, I used to struggle, but now I'm up and it doesn't matter anymore. But RX Pappy doesn't feel that way. He expresses these feelings of having been through so much that no matter how up he is, he'll never leave that part of his life behind. He's stuck in a nightmare from the past and he doesn't see a way out. Nothing works and he feels lost and alone. And that's what makes this a truly unique song, because there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There is no good times to numb the pain. All 12 Stout Street is a long list of suffering. That's why it works so well. That's why it's one of the best songs I've ever heard, because it's full of heartbreaking lyrics and nothing else. There are no jokes, no wordplay. It's just straight expression of deep pain.
Supposed to be my mom and my dad. I wish that fucking house would burn down. I couldn't tell you then, but shit, I'll tell you now. For so many years I held it down. I never in my life wanted to sell drugs. I would've been cool with playing games and shit, but instead I'm running.
We live in a world that only encourages a small kind of expression. You're supposed to make money, be normal, and shut up. No one really wants to hear what you've been through, and they definitely don't want to know that you still struggle. People only want to hear how you used to be down, but you got up and you shook it off and you got all better. But we all struggle, and we've all been through something, and in that way, we're all going to be going through something for the rest of our lives. That's why 12 Stout Street blew up in the first place, because there was a growing movement of people who needed ways to express their own pain and suffering. And when you listen to the song, it just feels so real, and it takes me back to my childhood home, and this song is just that devastating. It makes you remember things that you wanted to forget a long time ago. The conflict, the bad memories, the uncertainty of being a child. This is a song that can bring it all back immediately. And that overwhelming level of emotion is why it's so hard to listen to, even though it sounds angry. 12 Stout Street is a song about fear, regret, and pain, because anyone can put up a front and act like they're big and scary, but it takes a true artist to admit that they feel small and scared. That's why, in a way, even though the song is horrifyingly sad and I instantly tear up every time I hear it, I end up feeling strong and free by the time it's over. We shouldn't let society tell us that we need to hide our emotions and pretend that nothing bothers us. We should all be able to express our deepest feelings, because nothing good comes from hiding from your demons. Living a life where you hide from the darkness doesn't mean that your life will be full of light. It means you'll spend the rest of your days pretending, lying to yourself, and acting like everything is okay. But when you finally accept the darkness, when you look at it and say, in a way, I am broken, that's how you begin to heal. By letting it out and looking at it and saying, my past can't defeat me. There are very few songs in the world like 12 Stout Street. In my mind, it's one of the best songs in the modern era of music. There just aren't a lot of songs that deeply touch in the darkest sides of the human condition with that much honesty. But like I said, that doesn't make it a hopeless song. I think allowing yourself to feel pain and accepting that suffering is a natural part of life is an incredibly important thing to do. The darkest night always comes right before the brightest day. I'm Philip, this is Volksgeist. Thank you for watching. And of course, don't forget that my brand new necklace, The Darkest Night and the Brightest Day, is now available at volksgeist.store with free shipping to the US. And since you watched this far into the video, you can use the code VOLKSGANG for up to $15 off. Thank you so much for your support.